Autumn is well and truly here and Storm Benjamin is in full effect. But don't worry, I've got the perfect car for such conditions. Hello and welcome to the Land Rover Series 2A. That's right, today I have the keys to this. It's a lovely 1968 Land Rover Series 2A 88-inch, and we're going to have a proper look around it, inside and out, and then we're going to get under the bonnet and take it out on the road, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I think of this absolutely legendary English 4x4. There are a few things in the automotive world that have the presence and cult status of a series Land Rover. It really is nothing short of a global cultural icon, and for good reason. One of the most significant and iconic 4x4s of all time. It really did revolutionise the idea of the dependable, rugged, agricultural, utilitarian, off-roading vehicle. Introduced first in 1948, the series Land Rover was produced in one form or another right the way through until the mid-1980s. It was made in three main series, the Series 1, the Series 2 and the Series 3. This particular car is a Series 2A, which is often argued to be the best of the bunch, the iconic, proper, hardy Land Rover. The Series Land Rover really was the benchmark for what a rugged, dependable 4x4 should be. The Series 1 really was a revolutionary thing. By the time the Series 2 was introduced, it very much cemented its reputation. The Series 2 would take the ideals of the simple Series 1 Land Rover and run with it, but this time, adding a bit more aesthetic styling. The body was widened and the front end was slightly changed and tweaked, but that same rudimentary boxy style remained. It was in 1961 where the Series 2A would be introduced, at which point Land Rover were well and truly into their stride. They're quite hard to differentiate from a Series 2. Aesthetically, they're very similar. It was only later in production, the late 1960s, where the headlights would move from here onto the wings. Aside from that, a 2 and a 2A are quite similar to look at. So why were the series Land Rovers so successful? Well, as I said, it comes down to one main thing: dependability. These things were endlessly reliable, and so much so that by the 1990s, Land Rover estimated that 70% of the Land Rover series ever made was still on the road. Parts were cheap, readily available, and they were easy to work on. There was very little not to like. Available in two main body styles, the 88-inch short wheelbase you see here, or a longer 109-inch wheelbase. This could take you, your mates, and a whole support crew to whatever far-flung adventure you would go on. People across the world realised the significance of a model like this and how useful it could be, to the point where around 75% of Land Rover series manufactured at one point were exported. There's not a corner of the globe that hasn't seen one of these plying its trade, earning its keep, and for good reason. Stepping inside a series Land Rover, it's really easy to see that simplicity was key in here. Looking at this front end, I could be forgiven for thinking I'm in a piece of agricultural machinery, but everything has a function. It really is function over form. This particular example boasts a deluxe interior, which means I have lavishly upholstered 3 abreast seating in the front, which is surprisingly comfortable. At the front here, I've got an assortment of different levers and controls, most of which operate high or low ranges, or the 4-wheel drive system / overdrive. I've got 3 abreast seating here, and in the rear of this particular example, I've got benches running along the sides. But the rear of a series Land Rover was very much a blank canvas. You could fit it out commercially with racking, or have crew seats, or pretty much whatever you wanted to your heart's content. The longer wheelbase 109-inch series Land Rovers could seat up to 12 from factory. It really was a jack of all trades. This particular example also has a heater down here, which doubles up as a demister, but by and large, these were very rudimentary, bare bones things. Simple and effective. That was the nature of the game under the bonnet of a Series 2 or 2A. There were 2 main engines available, both 2.25 litres, a petrol and a diesel, the latter having around 62 brake horsepower and the former having around 75 brake horsepower. Power was never really the aim of the game with one of these. Dependability was, and that was exactly what this engine was. Yes, it was expensive to run in terms of fuel, especially by today's fuel price standards, but it would go on and on and on and on. There was a 2.6 litre inline 6 engine available, but these are relatively few and far between. In the modern era, whilst a lot of these still bear their 2.25 litre engines, these are ripe for engine swaps, most of which having 200 or 300 TDI more modern Land Rover engine swap, or even a TD5.
I think it's fair to say this is going to be one of my louder driving portions. There's going to be a fair bit of shouting going from my experience with these series Land Rovers in the past. But we've got the 2A out on the road, so let's see what it's like. think it's fair to say. This is the authentic Land Rover experience. Am I in a piece of agricultural machinery? Pretty much yes. It's normally at this point in the driving portion where I talk about road holding and refinement, but I think it's fair to say that before I even took this out on the road, we knew there wasn't going to be anything in either of those categories. It's ridiculously loud in here, and it's tremendously slow. I'm in top gear and I feel like I'm barely moving. I think I could probably get out and walk faster. That being said, this particular example is quite a good one from a mechanical side of things. It starts on the button and it performs exactly as you'd expect a series Land Rover to do. Poorly. I dread to think of the traffic currently behind me. But a gentle cruise in Storm Benjamin, I don't feel like pushing this thing too hard. The 2.25 litre petrol engine is a highly regarded one in Land Rover scenes. Despite being slow, you can be fairly confident it's one that will run pretty much into the ground and then carry on once it's 6 feet under. That being said, a lot of these series Land Rovers get more modern swaps. A 200 TDI is more than common in something like this. Or hell, even a TD5 engine. I think that would greatly improve performance, but in terms of refinement, I think we'd still be well and truly up the creek. I'm actually impressively surprised by the manoeuvrability. I'm doing quite a sharp little U-turn there, and it handled it with a lot more composure than I was expecting. This being an 88 inch, the turning circle is a lot better. In a 109, I think I might have struggled there. I am rather impressed by the comfort in here. It's no Rolls Royce, but I was expecting my head to be bouncing up and down on this canvas roof, and it was really not. Obviously, 3 abreast bench seating, I'm not being held particularly well, but I'm not feeling every single lump and bump in the road. I am having tremendous fun in this little Land Rover, that's for sure. You can probably see I'm grinning ear to ear, and for good reason. It's slow, it's cumbersome, it feels ever so perilous, and yet I am grinning like a schoolboy. It's so much fun.
So, the Series 2A Land Rover, what do I think? What are my thoughts? Well, they're overwhelmingly positive. This is such a lovable little thing despite all its quirks. It's fun to drive, it's a wild experience, it's reliable, parts are cheap, and in recent years they've become quite trendy. The negative of that, as a result, they are demanding quite strong values at the moment. So if you do want to get one, it's probably quite a safe investment, I'd argue. Things to look out for? Well, it's as you'd expect with a classic British car. It's rust, of course. Despite an overwhelmingly aluminium-based construction, the chassis and bulkhead love to rot. The good thing is that by this point in their life, most of them have either been repaired, replaced, or well cared for enough that it's not an issue. But it is something to watch out for because it's an expensive job if you need to do it. Overall though, the Series 2A Land Rover gets my approval. I think it's slightly more refined and fun to drive, and I think better looking than an earlier Series 1, and still has a nice amount of that classic factor. A thumbs up from me. Thank you very much for watching the rather windy and stormy video review of this Land Rover Series 2A. I do hope you've enjoyed, and I apologise for any excessive wind noise. If you like this sort of thing, please check out our other video reviews, and if you have a classic car to sell, please get in touch with us at classiccarbuyer.co.uk. We'd love to hear from you. Bye bye.